Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well, hope you're all taking care of yourselves and not working too hard. We're going to start this lesson talking about the short story we will be reading, Bud Not Buddy. Now this is a story written by the author Christopher Paul Curtis. He is an African American man. He graduated from the University of Michigan. His focus usually tends to direct itself towards writing in the point of view of a child, like of young persons. And in the case of Bud Not Buddy, and this is the case in the story Bud Not Buddy. Now, a little bit of background about this story. It's set during the Great Depression. Now, I want to take a second here and explain what the Great Depression actually was. You see, in 1929, specifically October 29th, 1929, the Great Depression happened. It's the moment where all the banks and all the great corporations in the United States suddenly went up, and they lost everything. It's created incredible hardship in the American population, causing an economic crisis where people lost their homes, they lost their jobs, they lost everything. They had to make lines so they could buy a piece of this, like this big of bread, so they could eat that day. Not as a meal, but for the whole day. Now, the Great Depression was caused by financial corporations, banks, and large corporations in general not really paying attention to what was going on and being risky with their investments. To put it another way, they bet on bad numbers. They made bad bets that caused a lot of problems, and the people who suffered the most were the poor people, the people who did not have savings to sustain such a crisis. Now, what's interesting about this is that it's sort of been happening right now. Banks in 2008, banks made a lot of risky, had a lot of risky ideas and made a lot of risky investments, and just like the Great Depression, lost a lot of people's savings, all the money they had in the banks. During the Great Depression, the president at the time, Herbert Hoover, believed that the best thing they could do was leave it for the states, not the federal government, to fix the problem. Now, each individual state was supposed to deal with what was going on, meaning that, let's say in the case of Florida, instead of being helped by the whole United States to fix the problem, Florida had to deal with itself, with it by itself. Additionally, when it happened, something similar happened in 2008 during the presidency of Barack Obama. What he did was he helped the banks deal. He lended money to the banks so they could help the people. So they could, let me rephrase that. He lent money to the banks so they could pay back the people that they owed. They didn't help anybody, they just paid people. I tried to be polite, but the truth is that the banks make the problem, and now they have to fix it. Now, in the Great Depression, Herbert Hoover did not believe in such a thing. So he talked about self-reliance in his speeches and how you have to fix a problem. Problem is, the poor people didn't cause the problem, and the rich people were staying rich and wasting all this money and not giving anything back to the community. Jump to 1932, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt wins the election. Herbert Hoover was a Republican. Roosevelt was a Democrat. Now, his idea was to create the New Deal. Through the New Deal, we had he created regulations for the banks. He created ways of ensuring savings and insuring people's money so it would avoid another crisis like this. It wasn't perfect, but it led to a lot of good ideas that as time went on would eventually permit for people to have a safety net in case of all these issues. Directly responsible because we could make a line, like so I'm sorry, we could make a straight line towards what happened in 2008, that thanks to what Franklin Delano Roosevelt put in place, we had a safety net that Obama could use to help fix the problem before it became bigger. You see, the Great Depression didn't end until 1937, 38, because from 1929 to 1930, I'm gonna say 38, it just kept going. It got better, but it didn't get fixed. Now in 1939, what happened was, or in 1938, what happened was, the World War II was looming. Now to give you a little bit of information, another truck. Now to give you the tiniest of information about it, the World War II is the biggest conflict we've ever had in the world. So it forced the government to invest, to give money to people to work, and to send so many of them to war that it allowed for the economy to research. Now, with all that information that I've given you, just look at it as a way of understanding the setting, what is going on in But Not Buddy. Okay, what do I want you to do? Now I want you to read this. We're gonna read it more than once, but this is the first read. And in the first read, I want you to do two very important things. Number one, I want you to write down any conclusions that you can come up with. How you create an inference by yourself. Remember that inferences are the evidence or the information that is being given to you throughout the story. What do you do with that information? You pass it through your head, and that comes out as an inference because you know what's going to happen next, or at least you have an idea. You have a conclusion. You try to reach a conclusion of what is going on. Now, I want you to write down on the side of the paper. You can write your thoughts, right? And you can put there what inferences you have or you come up with. Then I want you to add a little bit, how do you get there? Be aware that sometimes we make inferences without realizing it. But what we're trying to do is to make this a conscious action. To think, to realize that I'm going in this direction, right? Lastly, I want you to underline or write down any words that you feel are hard to understand, so you can search for them later. Remember, you always use context clues to help you understand what a word means. Okay? Yeah, that's about it. We're gonna be reading pages 10 to 12. The story is called But Not Buddy. We're gonna be doing that, and just, we're gonna be working from there on. So this is Mr. Marty, again, like every day and every video. So bye-bye.